Everyone to please keep their phones on silent. The earth and woman both nurture life, both carry the weight of creation, and both deserve justice before we speak of progress. A very pleasant good morning to everyone present here. A warm, respectful, and heartful welcome to all the dignitaries, academicians, researchers, and student participants joining us for the 13th Indian Social Work Conference. Today's session invites us to rethink development through a lens that is inclusive, intersectional, gender responsive, and ecologically grounded. This theme reminds us that development is not only about economic output, but about justice, inclusion, and sustainability. A gender-sensitive eco-social approach reframes development in a way that protects the planet, uplifts women, and ensures that growth is human, ethical, and equitable. Today's session will help us rethink development through the lens these connected interlenses. Now, with immense honor, may I now respectfully invite our distinguished dignitaries for this special session to kindly come forward and take their seats on the dais. Professor Smita Mishra Panda, Director of Research, CUTM, Bhubaneswar, Orissa, and she's the chair for today's session. Professor Mitali Chinara, Chairman, PG Council, Utkal University, Orissa. And Dr. Jharna Swain, Secretary, Orissa Professional Social Workers Association. Thank you all. We are deeply honored to have you all with us today. Now I'd like to take a moment. Yes, ma'am. The rest of our panelist speakers are on their way. They'll attend the session shortly. Now, I'd like to take a moment to introduce our dignitaries joining us on the dais for this session. Professor Smita Mishra Panda, Director of Research at CUTM Bhubaneswar, a PhD at AIT Bangkok and a gold medalist from Delhi University. She has devoted more than 30 years to impactful work in gender and development, governance, natural resource management, and community livelihoods. Her research influence extends across India and South Asia with collaborations at national and international associations. Can I have a huge round of applause for our chair for today? Next, we have Professor Mitali Chinara, Professor at Analytical and Applied Economics and Chairperson of PG Council at Utkal University. With over 3 decades of academic experience and policy research, she has worked extensively in gender economics, social sector growth, higher education financing. She is also a gold medalist and has contributed significantly to gender-based policy research in Orissa and in India. Can I have a huge round of applause for her? Up next, we are privileged to welcome Dr. Jharna Swain, Secretary of OSPVA, with over 15 years of professional practice in areas of child protection, counseling, capacity building. She has played a key role in strengthening and professional work, social work practice, and field engagement in Orissa. A warm round of applause for all our speakers for this session. Now, I would formally request our chair for this session to kindly take charge of the conference and begin the discussion with flow. Ma'am, the panel is all yours.
It's on, right? Okay, good morning. Good. It'll take a Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session on reimagining development, gender-sensitive eco-social work practices. Yeah, that's the title of this panel discussion. I'm sorry to say that we do not have all the speakers here. Some of them are outside. They've gone somewhere, and they are on their way back. Any moment they'll be arriving, so we thought it's good to start, because otherwise we will be very late for the sessions that is following this one. Okay, all of you, welcome again to this conference, social work conference, this panel, and I would like to say a few words on, eco-social work is now emerging as a field in social work. Yeah, it is emerging, and what it does, yeah, basically integrates environmental sustainability, ecological and social justice principles. So primarily we are talking about interconnectedness of human well-being, social inequalities, and the natural environment. Of course, in the core, we are trying to address environmental degradation, climate change impacts, resource depletion, and disaster that exacerbates social vulnerabilities, especially for marginalized groups, including women. So basically, therefore, what is gender-sensitive eco-social work? It builds on this by explicitly incorporating a gender lens, acknowledging how gender norms, roles, and power imbalances intersect with ecological issues or environmental issues, leading to disproportionate impacts on women, girls, and also the gender diverse individuals. Now, this approach draws from ecofeminism, intersectionality, and anti-oppressive frameworks to promote equitable and transformative interventions. The context is basically could be recognizing women's higher exposure to environmental risks due to roles in unpaid care work, agriculture, and resource gathering. So what I would request our panelists is to, whatever you would be saying, if you could link it to gender-sensitive social work practices. Yeah, I think you can do it. So, because I found that the topics are a little diverse, but I thought let me just orient you a little bit so that you can follow this, right? Okay. Gender sensitization, this is like taking a class. When you say gender sensitivity, gender sensitization, there are three things. One is that you try to first understand why there is inequality, gender inequality, right? The complexity of gender inequality. You first need to understand that the factors that contribute to gender inequality in any field, whether it's agriculture, health, education, livelihood, sports, yeah, any legal, the justice system. Why there is this inequality? Once you understand the complexity, you internalize it. It's very important to accept it and internalize. Only when you internalize, you will be able to take some action. The third step is you take some action. You want to do something, right? These are the things that I teach in the class, that, and the students ask me, what can we do? What can we do? What action can we take? So I tell them, talk to 5 people about it who are not undergoing this course or not, in this class. I said, yes. So because you see, whatever learning happens inside the class, there's much more learning happening outside, through debates and interactions and, discussions, etc., and particularly on gender issues, right? So with this, let us begin our session. Maybe Mitali, you can go first. Yes. You don't want to introduce her? Okay. You can briefly just say from where you are.
So very good morning to all present over here. Very dear the Vice Chancellor, CUTM, Professor Supriya Patnaik, Director Research, Professor Smita Mishra Panda, my co-panelist, Dr. Jharana Swai, and all other dignitaries, of course, Pradeep, as he has been referred to as the boss. Okay, so yes, my very dear boss. As I've been introduced, I come from Utkal University, where I teach in Department of Analytical and Applied Economics, basically economics. And as a student of economics, I have taken up a topic, though I have tried to link it to the subject which we are deliberating on in this panel. So I shall be talking on an aspect which is not very commonly addressed in economics. I will be talking on family economics and care work. And and also from my discussions, or what I have from my understanding of the subject, and being a woman, I will be talking about what should be done or what needs to be done, right? So coming to families, we all belong to one or the other family. Families have been a major force in the production and distribution of goods and services in every kind of human society, starting from the ancient primitive societies to the current one in across the globe, from developed to the developing world. They have been especially important in dealing with, with production, care, development of children, production of food, protecting against illness and other hazards. And families, of course, we do realize that over a period of time, families have radically changed in the course of recorded history. The detailed kinship relations in the primitive societies, as traced by anthropologists, contrasts with the predominance of nuclear family in modern societies. Thus, the understanding families have changed, the structure has changed, and the obligation in relatively less deprived societies to care for and maintain elderly parents is largely absent in modern societies, where the elderly either live alone, we often see that, or in paid care facilities. However, in spite of this dominant role of families, all the production that is meant are meant for people, and the people come from families. Families have been much less prominent in economic analysis than in reality. Although major economists have claimed that families are a foundation of economic life, we do not see much of a discussion in the seminal works that we talk about in economics, neither in Marshall's Principles of Economics nor in Mills's Principles of Political Economy or in Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, apart from a casual remark. I would like to quote here from a very famous economist, all of us that we kind of know about, Amartya Sen. He went to the extent of saying that family is a remarkable institution and a complex one. And he goes on to say that it is so complex that much of economic theory proceeds as if no such thing exists. In the standard theory of prices and equilibrium, the most elegant version of which is to be found in the theory of general equilibrium, individuals and firms are visible. We see firms and individuals who are visible and discussed, but definitely no families. The individual owns resources, sells them, earns an income, buys goods and services, and has utilities. The firms buy resources, makes commodities, sells them, makes profits, and gives income to individual owners. This story runs like that. With no family in sight, and children neither heard nor seen. Quote unquote, Amartya Sen. The interest in families by economists are quite new. Until recent decades, economists essentially ignored the family, perhaps because family decisions were rather simple during the 19th and early 20th century. There was clear-cut division of roles between genders. Women were primarily interested in marriage. Married women did not work in marketplace. This meant an almost complete sexual division of labor between husbands and wives. Husbands worked for income and wives did the housework. In addition, we can say that the modern families, the economic role of families has changed rapidly. During the last 50 years or so, women are joining the labor force. Fertility greatly declined, and practically across the globe, especially also in the most populous country, that is India, we know we have reached a rate of fertility, the total fertility rate, which accounts for the growth of population. In India, we have reached below the replacement rate of total fertility rate. It is total fertility rate, replacement rate is regarded as 2.1. And we have total fertility rate in India has come below that. In Odisha, much below that. Odisha's total fertility rate stands today at around 1.8, which is less than the national standards. So as a result, economists have begun to analyze family behavior in a systematic way. I would like to here refer to the seminal work by Gary Becker, who wrote a famous book. You must be aware that a treatise on family, which is a landmark work that applies economic theory to analyze the family as a unit of decision making and resource allocation. Becker treats families much like the multi-person little factory. He treats families as a little factory which produces not just goods and services, but also outcomes such as meals, skills, health, children, and self-esteem, both from the market goods and the time, knowledge, and skills of its members. Whether you agree with Becker or not, that's besides the point. There are criticisms, I agree, but he has tried to analyze the family behavior in terms of the economic paradigm. And Becker incorporates unpaid care work into his economic model of household production by treating the household as a unit that produces both market and non-market goods and services, including care work, though through the use of time and market inputs. And Becker's framework conceptualizes unpaid care work like child rearing, elder care, and domestic tasks as a form of household production. It's an output of the family or household that contributes to the welfare and human capital development of the family members. And this, coming back to India, the Indian economy is undergoing a rapid transformation. Our society is also under a tremendous flux. We are urbanizing and nuclearizing at an unprecedented rate. And while the family remains the fulcrum of the Indian society, still, its women are coming under extraordinary pressure due to disproportionate burden of care being placed on their shoulders, especially as they explore work opportunities outside the household. But however, for the long-term and balanced development of the Indian society, there is a need to prioritize evolution of the care economy. Here I come back to the care economy, which not only covers the population of children, but also 120 million elderly population, that is people above the age of 60. Of course, I do recognize that people above, 60 is not old now. Now the milestone, the goalposts have changed. It has gone ahead. 60 to 80 people are still contributing. They are not regarded as people who need care. But nearly 30 million people with disabilities. Healthy development of care economy in India is necessary to support the primary caregivers in our society, the majority of whom happen to be women within our families. Over the past years, we see that the gross enrollment ratio in the higher education has undergone a steep rise, and GER, this gross enrollment ratio for women, has witnessed an even sharper growth comparatively. As a result, there are more girls than boys in higher education institutions. But I would like to state here that this higher number of girls in higher education institutions, it's for general education. If you come to the STEM education, then boys still outnumber the girls. But in spite of that, India is one of the countries which produces highest number of, proportion, not in terms of absolute numbers, but in relative numbers also. 43% of the graduates, STEM graduates, are women. But if you look at the percentage of these STEM graduates who are working in the STEM field, it's much less. What is happening to this? So 14% of the people engaged in the STEM sector are women. 43% of the graduates from the STEM sector are women. So where these are going? So I would like to once again quote Amartya Sen, where are the missing women? So if they would have missing women, not in terms of the people who are not there, but missing women who would have been in the workforce had there been a more conducive and a supportive work system, supportive family structure and mindset, most of it all. Now if I look a major, and in India, the labor force participation rate of women is still much less than most of the developing countries. It's around 25%, whereas for men, it is around 75%. There are misses, gaps in data that we agree, but still it's really a matter of concern. A major reason often cited for women dropping out of the labor market is the lack of adequate support for caregiving. Now, if I look at the time use survey, I would like to quote the results from the time use survey for 2024. The latest one was done in 2024. Female participants of the, age from 15 to 59 in unpaid domestic service spent about 315 minutes during 2019, but now it has come down marginally to 305 minutes as per 2004. And this shift is probably, we can say, from unpaid to paid work. 41% of the females of that age group, 15 to 59, participated in caregiving for the household members. Male participation in that age group was only 21.4, mark the gender gap. Also, female participation in caregiving activities, they spend on an average 140 minutes a day compared to 74 by male participants of that age group, 15 to 59. This corroborates, and what more, this gap, gender gap, is across the levels of education. And not only, it is not for the women, girls who are less educated. This is also true for the women and girls at higher levels of education. In fact, at higher levels of education, there is a slightly higher the number of minutes that is spent for unpaid care work is little higher. So education is not liberating women from unpaid care work. And this corroborates the Indian social fabric, wherein most of the caregiving responsibilities of the household are borne by the females of the household. And it has been estimated that current caregiving makes the contribution of the current caregiving to India's GDP ranges from 15 to 17% of the GDP. This is a significant value that is mostly created within the household and is often discounted and disregarded because these are non-marketable transactions. They are not reflected, they do not come to the market, they are unpaid care work. I would like to flag certain points. Number one being, care work, both paid and unpaid, is essential for future of decent work. Now we're not talking about work, we're talking about decent work. It mainly consists of two overlapping activities: direct personal care, relational care such as feeding the baby, or indirect care activities such as cooking, cleaning, and so on and so forth. The second point I would like to flag is unpaid work is crucial for households and economies to function, yet remains mostly invisible. Unpaid work is essential, but remains invisible and unaccounted for in the estimates of GDP. When we talk about women's contribution to GDP, this unpaid care work is not taken into account. The undervaluation and invisibility of care work predominantly performed by women has resulted in a market failure. We call it, in terms of, as a student of economics, I call it a market failure, where skilled and talented women are unable to realize their economic potential, leading to a misallocation of resources at the macroeconomic level. The market failure manifests as increased time poverty for women. What is the result? Outcome is the increased time poverty of women. Women do not have time to spend on activities or to do things which they want to do. Inefficient allocation of women's talent. Lack of well-paying jobs in the care sector, and motherhood penalties. It is said that one childbirth means you are paying 3 years of your career, and if there is a career gap, we know how difficult it is to bridge and come up once again. The third point I would like to flag is, enhancing investment in the care economy has the potential to not only bridge the gender gaps in women's labor force participation, but also unlocks a new economic segment for emerging economies, creating increased economic output and jobs in the care work service sector. ILO estimates suggest that increasing investment in the care services sector has the potential to generate 475 million jobs globally by 2030. In India specifically, this would require an investment equivalent of 2% of GDP, which can potentially generate 11 million jobs. Nearly 70% of it all will go to women. So it will also create more opportunities, decent work, as they say, for women. The fourth point is international. I would like to talk about the G20 Bali Care Economy Dialogue, which has provided a comprehensive recommendation to governments during India's G20 presidency. We had at New Delhi, they have prepared India's leadership and presidency in 23 calls upon the G20 countries to promote investment in the availability and accessibility of social protection and to affordable care infrastructure to address the unequal distribution in paid and unpaid care and domestic work, and to promote the continued participation of women in education and employment. Now, look at India's demographic landscape as it is going to change between 2020 to 2050, which necessitates more elderly care alongside continuing levels of child care. A recent study or estimation by UNFPA finds that as of 2022, about 25% of Indians' population was between the age of 0 to 14, and 10.5% was above the age of 60 years. That is 360 million children and 147 million elderly persons who require care over the few decades. But this, by 2050, it is projected that the proportion of elderly population is expected to increase to 20.8%. Life expectancies are rising, and about 347 million persons in India, that is, and as the proportion of children reduces marginally to 18%, the number of children will still be closer to 300 million, a huge number, and all of these people require care. And this shift in India's demographic landscape implies the need to strategically invest not only in healthcare, in social support, but also in the care infrastructure to cater to the evolving needs of the population. And it is estimated that if economic value of women's unpaid domestic care work in India ranges between 15 to 17% of GDP. Investment in establishing care infrastructure and care services can unlock economic potential for the India's economy, creating new business opportunities and generating jobs. Especially this care job will mostly go to women. The care sector offers a vast potential for India's economic growth. Not only does the availability of care infrastructure and services reduce women's time poverty and enhance female labor force participation rate, but the provision of care infrastructure and services act as a standalone business opportunity which is particularly suited for women-led entrepreneurship and women's employment. At this point of time, we are talking about not about women's development alone, but women-led development, where women not only are a beneficiary at the recipient's end of the development process, but also an active participant in the development process. A report by McKinsey Global Institute claims that annual global GDP could increase by 28 trillion US dollars by 2025 if women's participation in labor force was identical to that of men's. So what we need is that we need investments in the care economy across a range of services and subsectors. Revitalizing care economy, therefore, is critical to the vision of women-led development, which you are talking about, which you are planning. And in order to make India a developed country, the dream, that is to make it really a developed country by 2047. Unlocking investment in India's care economy entails several steps that are necessary to lay the foundation for the long-term evolution of this critical sector. So I will stop here. Thank you so much. These are my thoughts. If there are questions, I would like to respond to them. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Pradeep. Thank you, Centurion University. Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for the patient hearing.
Yeah, thank you, yeah, thank you, Professor Mitali, for this wonderful talk, I would say. Not a lecture, because lecture is longer, right? Because these are the issues that I talk in the class. Yeah, women's unpaid work and how it is ignored and how they contribute. You said 15 to 17% to the GDP, but it's not factored in our SNA, that is System of National Accounts. It is not, it's invisible, yeah? And yes, there is a need to invest in the care infrastructure and care services. Only then women can, the labor force participation rates of women can increase, and that will then feed into the economy. Their participation will then enhance the GDP, to the total GDP. $28 trillion you said, because those figures I was just looking at. Yeah, this is amazing. $28 trillion, I mean, then we are a developed country, right? So you see where the key lies, yeah, where the key investment lies in care infrastructure and caregiving. I mean, this is something which we see every day, where women could do something more than what they are doing, in terms of not only care work, but they can do so many things. But because of this kind of, they're so busy and all their time goes in caregiving and looking after the elderly, the sick, even the livestock. Just think about it. And all that is part of unpaid work. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Let's go to the next speaker. No, I'll not trouble you now. Let's go to Jharna. You can still breathe. Yeah. Dr. Jharna Swai, Secretary of OPSWA. Yeah, please. Around 10, 12 minutes.
Good evening. Sorry, good morning to all of you. Good morning to our Vice Chancellor, Registrar, and my teacher present here, and all the dignitaries, professors, students, researchers. I congratulate you to be here as a listener and also the future intervener of these matters. So I am a practitioner. I'm a professional and I'm a practitioner. So I am working as a principal counselor to Family Court Bhubaneswar, appointment by the High Court of Odisha. So by this role, I used to deal with per day 10 to 15 cases dealing with this gender disparity. How these people, women or men, are coming to court premises and asking for their rights and gender equality. Okay, so out of this, I will only speak 3 cases, and you will analyze how this gender equality is happening in our society or not. This is your role too. I will only speak out the case studies, and I will not say whether the male are dominating, female are dominating, whether the systems, today's system, women education, women empowerment is good for the society or bad for the society. That is not my discussion. This is my we will introspect what is going on. And this is the rise of allegations against Indian family laws of being unjustly and overtly favoring women has made it important to make a doctrinal inquiry to assess them. Therefore, it is prudent to refer the plethora of laws and precedent pertaining to matrimony, divorce, maintenance, inheritance, and guardianships. So in these cases, I have taken, by looking at all these situations, I will only focus on this custody case and this maintenance case, and another is inheritance case. So I will go through the first case on this custody. So let's try to listen the story that both the husband and wife were IT professionals and had a son of 10 years. The wife had adopted for a workplace outside India, leaving her 2-3 years of a child with her husband. Her son lived with his father and grandparents in India. The mother would visit her family once in a year. After some years, the mother, with the pretense of taking her son for vacations, permanently moved her child to her workplace that was outside India. Consequently, the father was deprived of custody of the child, and the grandparents also displeased with the happenings. Through the wife was not demanding divorce, she separated her son from his father. Therefore, a dispute pertaining to the custody of the child arose. Here, the male is deprived of child custody, conjugal relationship, and further marriage. So this is my analysis, and you could see by the looking at the present laws and present interventions to give justice to the for both the part of the society, male and female, how these things are going on. Because out of 10-15 cases in daily basis, I feel ki 8 numbers of cases are going against the male. Okay. The second case is on maintenance. Seema married a mechanical engineer, and within 8 years of marriage, she stayed with her husband only 3 months. The wife, being married, asked maintenance from her husband. After counseling, it is found that the wife is being an elder daughter and had been overtly pampered by her parents. Hence, she is reluctant to cohabit with her husband. The parents of the wife had induced their daughter to stay with them. They prompt her to convince her husband to stay with them. However, it was not acceptable to the husband to live in in-laws' house, leaving behind his own parents. After the husband's denial, the wife demanded maintenance, but not interested for divorce. Therefore, without there being any fault of the part of the husband, he was compelled to give maintenance of his wife. This caused a lot of distress and frustration of him and his parents. And the third case is on inheritance. A highly qualified married software engineer was working in Mumbai and living with her husband from an affluent family. While she was an active professional, she also managed the household, cared their child. The husband was working from home. However, he had to work overtime and had very less time to household works. Whatever time he could get after working hours, he used to spend such time with his son. He could realize that he was not being able to give time to his family, but he was compelled to continue as it was a high-paying job. However, his wife was displeased, and hence she, along with her son, deserted the husband. She filed for separation, and it was also granted by the court, without giving any visitation rights to the husband. After 2 years of separation, the husband remarried and had a son from the second marriage. After several years, the first son from the first marriage, after becoming a major, filed a suit claiming preference of his right over the property of his father. Despite having no contact with his first son, the father had to suffer through litigation involving his own property. Therefore, despite there being no emotional bonding between the two, father had suffered a lot. So there are many cases in and around, but I need to say that the family law of India need to change. And whether we are, by the way, otherwise, there is a lots of what you are talking about, ecosystem and this liberty and everything will be in the future course of action. There is only the cases of divorce, only the cases of maintenance, no love, no affections, no sharing, no caring, and whatever we are going for the new technology and all things, because our society is going to be in a very difficult situations. So this is the food for thought, and this is not my opinion, because this is my observations. So I am not in favor of male or female, but what is practically I am seeing, just I want to put it for you, the heavy brains are here, so just think and go ahead for your future course of actions. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Jharna Swai. I think this is a very important issue. Yeah, it's good that she spoke from her experience of working in the family courts. But you see, we still don't know the statistics, because we cannot generalize that this is what is normally happening, because what we see normally happening is just the opposite, right? But it's good to also know the other side and understand that these are issues that need to be taken into account, and if we want to revisit the family laws, revisit the family laws. Yes, that is something important, I understand. There are several talks, several TED talks. I give to my students these talks, you know, where they can understand the other side. Because it's not that we only talk about how women have been victimized and how much traumatized they are and what's happening to them, right? But also what happens to men. There are students who come and ask me why we don't have men's commission. Yeah, we have a state women's commission, but we should also have a state men's commission. Yeah, so I think that is, yeah, that's what Jharna says, that it's under process. So maybe one day we'll have a men's commission. So thank you very much for your thoughts and your inputs. And we go over to the next speaker. I think she says that her talk will logically flow from what you said. So we have Professor Neena Pandey from Delhi University, Department of Social Work.
I'll speak from there.
Yeah, you can speak from anywhere. Both are functioning.
But I feel I am okay from here. Why I said this? Thank you so much. Thank you, Centurion. Thank you, NAPSI, for this invitation. And I was just thinking that if I am coming in this, because I have worked in the area of gender and development and primarily gender-based violence. So I feel that why I said this, that I am the fit person now after Jharna ji and first Mitali and Jharna ji, because my theme is addressing gender just development through restorative mechanisms. So I think I will not cry that women are actually, they have faced a lot. There has been a history of gender disparity. There has been, because the history was written by someone else. Of course, it was women's participation was missing as an identity. And many gender identities, here when I say gender-based development, though in my talk mostly women will figure, but then consider it as, you know, somebody, I'm talking about someone who is who's considered as marginal sexuality, other genders also, but then I am whole, you know, burdened with at least थोड़ा पहले women का तो बात कर लें, है ना, क्योंकि अभी और भी बहुत सारे genders हैं जिनके बारे में जो marginal sexualities में आते हैं और they are vulnerable, but we have to really talk. And that is why I am here in a package. I bring restorative mechanisms so that when we form a policy, we do think about restorative justice, because what has happened historically, there has been gender disparity everywhere, globally, and the idea of society, the way it was designed, the disparity was a kind of, I'll say it was a complicated spider's web of privilege, toxic masculinity, and patriarchy. These are the three words, and the people have written that on that basis a kind of order was built, and the order was expected out of a disorder, right? Because, and I firmly believe in social work, we say that we believe in problem solving, not men versus women. I don't stand out here to say that men versus women, but why restorative? Because the harm has, restorative justice is repairing the harm. And grossly in society, in human civilizations, we have already created harm by not expecting, not realizing, not allowing. I hate this word allowing. Who will allow whom? But in family, what happens? In family, when I go for this, in domestic violence cases, when we go to the special police unit for women and children and the counseling services are happening, you know, the first check which we do with the women and the men both, the men, they will say, मैं अपनी बीवी को ऐसे तो नहीं रखना चाहता. I don't want to keep my, you know, wife like this. And on the contrary, दूसरी तरफ, मेरा husband मुझे रखना नहीं चाहता है. Right? So there is, both the statements are problematical. No, so people who are from Australia and other places, generally the practitioners, when we go for the counseling services, we find that in domestic violence cases, the partner will say, the husband will say, or the men partner will say that, I don't want to keep my wife if she behaves like this. And the the wife says that, my husband is not willing to keep me now. So the problem is with the keep word. That we are talking today, yesterday we were discussing about, definition of social work, and the core of social work is critical awareness, isn't it? So who will keep whom is the question. So in that line, then the second thing which I would like to, focus here is, rape is a global phenomena in gender-based violence, and how many of us are talking about it? We talk about rape as a news value. It comes in everyday newspaper. We read the newspaper, and then what is our response? Social workers, how are we responding? We respond. I'm not saying that we are not responding. There are, organizations, good organizations which are working, but hardly the cases are being reported, and it goes up, it reaches up till rehabilitation. That is something. And it has been seen in the law forum, it has been seen as a crime of passion rather than crime of misogynistic, behavior. That is something, problematical. And so I stand here to, as a concern, I'll put forth that let's talk about gender just development through restorative. Third, in society, since the beginning, there is a promotion of culture of silence. When the child is born, think about your socializations. Think about your socializations. Right from the beginning, you'll be said that you have to behave this way, that way, chup raho, jada mat bolo, be silent, all this. So the culture of silence is also there when we are grown up. What is bothering you so much? Others are also, teaching here. Others are also staying here. Why are you bothered if you are little bit, right-based, or if you are assertive? So that is why I said I'm not going to cry about pain and hurt, but I'm going to assert definitely, because kisi ko na kabhi to bolna to padega, right? Because the aspect of development, the very base of development has problem, and that problem needs to be cured culturally. So there is a promotion of culture of silence, so women speak up. Men also speak up, because we talk of problem solving. Then, as I said, that the philosophical standpoint of this theme came from pain and hurt, and a pain and hurt which is coming from, human civilization. So this pain and hurt has been named as nurturing, natural, ordered, nature. Women are related to nature, men are related to culture. So, if I speak here, it will be a, drop in the ocean, because the literature is there. There's plethora of research and plethora of studies and literature are there. And on the contrary, I would like to, I beg to differ. Jharna ji, I'm not undermining your practice, because that is your experience. But what happens, the real cases are not being reported only. They are underreported, and that is why the cases which are coming to you, and then you face problems, because the whole, the notion of, understanding that issue is superficial. And what happens through my experience, out of 10 cases, the 7 will be the real ones, and 3 will be the fake ones. And in every police meeting, discussion, discourses, these 3 cases will be referred. That is the that is the narrative politics, I say, that goes on in practice domain also. So since all of you are practitioners, always try to see the, critically analyze the narrative politics, which is very, very important. That is why there is a notion of, active listening, because what you listen, what the noise, everybody is hearing about that noise, but what is not understandable and inaudible is the pain inside. So it's very, very important to understand the politics of narratives. Fifth, I'll give one of the example of my own innovative project. It started in DU some years back, 10 years back. Thank you so much. And we did a project on locating women in the context of partition, because we conceived this idea that what was the view of women during partition. And to tell you, and why did we conceive, we had 10 students in that innovative project, and we reached out to 105 or 106 women. They were all elderly women, 91, 96, 101. And it was an interesting project, but the narratives, they opened our eyes. They said, "Ab sudh lene aaye ho hamari." They said that now you have thought of us. We have lived the entire pain and hurt throughout our life. We were children, we were child. We were 6 years old, 7 years old, 10 years old, 11 years old when we suffered partition. And as a social science, you are coming to us after so long. So there was a kind of, I'll say, the hurt or the pain, which was very, very important to actually, and these were only 101 or 105 or 106 women, elderly women. So there were many, right? And what happens when the politics of relief is done? Nobody, I think it is there in Anis Kidwai's books also, one of the book which she wrote on partition. It is there where, the women, they suffered partition. There was no say of women. Then they started living here, and the narrative which was going was my women and their women, based on communal lines. But what happened after 10 years, 15 years, the women, they settled, they married here, they had family. Then there was a rehabilitation policy planned, and the result of that policy was that now their women will be returned to them and our women will be returned here. So multiple victimization. So see the hurt and pain, and where women has no participation in decision making. So that is why restorative mechanism. The problem which you put forth is very, very important. Or she talked about unpaid work. Yes, women are putting in so much of labor, but who is talking about, who is giving respect? The homemakers are not, aapse bhi agar पूछते, if we ask, our students what your mother is doing, my mother does nothing. She's not working. In one of the research, they said there was, recently somebody presented and we were sitting for, just to see with the proposal. They said the difference between working and quality of life between working and non-working women. We asked only one question. Have you seen any non-working women? I have to find one. I've never seen women not working. Right? So the idea of the construct, see, the kind of construct we live with. Never say your moms are there, you are here because your moms and all your elder women have worked for you. So that is the idea. Now coming, what is gender just development? Why I have taken this? Only two notions, equity and equality. We means everybody, all the genders, the vulnerable genders, the marginal genders, they require their participation. They need their equity and equality equally and at every sphere, right? In decision making. That is gender just development. And then what is restorative justice? For all of you, restorative mechanisms, and read restorative justice as synonymous for this paper. Restorative justice says that it brings those harmed by crime or conflict and those responsible for the harm into communication, enabling everyone affected by a particular incident to play a part in repairing the harm. Two very important catchword of restorative justice is that it talks about repairing the harm and healing. And that is what I am demanding from NAPSV Forum, that it is very, very important that we talk about repairing the harm, because the harm has been done already. Let us talk about repairing the harm and healing. पहले हमको heal करो, affirmative action से करो, participation से करो, जैसे भी करो policy में लाके, and then talk about, development. Because the core of the course of development will only start with repairing the harm which has, and then we can look forward. Thirdly, how do I relate this theme with the theme of the conference? Any technology or any innovation, if it is not benefiting the vulnerable groups, it is good for nothing, right? So we have to we see generally, we get this question, lay out the social consequences and impact of development and technological advancement in society. We give these questions and give illustrations. Think about it. The innovations, the AI tools, one of the AI tools, I'll tell you, there was one of my student, her face was used through AI and through digital technological thing in a porn picture. And when this girl came to me, she said, this is suicidal. मैं तो गाँव जा नहीं सकती हूँ वापस. My friend show me this. How do I go to my village? I can't go. Rather, I'll commit suicide. So how this technological advancement is actually, impacting, that is another thing. Now, there are certain research, 2-3 research I'll talk about hurriedly. That one research, when I thought of this idea, I was working on restorative justice thing, and I was working with, Shabiba is right here, one of my student has done, restorative justice in child sexual abuse cases, and we found that there is lot of scope. And I tell you, in India, there is lot of scope because the restorative justice processes says that the victim and the offenders and all the significant others, all these stakeholders in problem solving will sit together, and technically the restorative justice person, and we request, we can, and we see that social workers can perform that role with a training, of course, that they can perform and they can get the problem towards problem solving. Now this case has come to you, but before, when the case is coming here, in the family court, there could be a, orchestrated, organized restorative justice mechanisms which can bring out the cases in a, I will not say who's right, who is wrong, but definitely a kind of introspection that with the pedestal of problem solving, how it can be done, whether the two people wants to love together or not. The hall is full with youngsters. The Indian society and parenting feels that rehabilitation is there in marriage. But there could be, separation from the marriage could also be rehabilitative. We have to think about that. And when you grow up after 11 years, 12 years, or 13 years, when you're a teenager, you keep on thinking about your marriage and organization of marriage. Marriage as an institution is more than the dal bhat, I say, the rice and you listen to about food, and then you listen about marriage and all. So it's very, very important that we prepare ourselves for an institution we are actually willing to live with, right? live in. So it's important that we talk about it. So one of the researches conducted, it is an Indonesian research, Zambia and et al. The research is restorative justice from a feminist jurisprudence. And this says that RJ is a peaceful, RJ means restorative justice is a peaceful principle. And it says that we don't want, the criminal justice system to operate for issues like, domestic violence. The nature of criminal justice system could be very different while engaging in the cases of domestic violence and, women's, sexual violence, etc. So it says that it's a peaceful principle, because we see in the criminal justice system that even if people have addressed, the system it has addressed the issues of violence, but the solution is not there. Sab dukhi hai usme. All the parties are unhappy. So it's important to think about, restorative mechanisms. So how can we do this restorative mechanism? One is, as I said, equity and equality. The equal participation becomes very, very important, where analysis of law from gender perspective has to be done. Again, that criminal justice system is also an outcome of a patriarchal scheme of things. So we'll have to see the gender framework, whether we are looking it from the gender lens or not. That is one. Second, restorative justice talks about focus on well-being of the victim, of course. Victim is in the focus, but what happens generally in criminal justice system, we know how the licensing and negotiation and lawyer ko pakdo or kaise all these systems operate. So actually we have to deconstruct and we have to dismantle that, I'll say the nexus of so-called service delivery, justice delivery. So the focus should be given to the victim. That's what the restorative justice mechanism says. Access to justice and empowerment of marginalized voices. Even today, when we see that when there is a case of domestic violence, the women is not speaking about, mostly cases, and out of 10 you'll find that women, in 7 cases or 8 cases, women, they are not speaking about their problem. Somebody else is speaking about their problem. So first we listen as a caseworker, as a counselor, and then we say what you have to say, right? We want to know the version of the women, the survivor first. And that is why Tata Institute of Social Sciences, they initiated, special cells. Shivli is right here. And they work on feminist casework perspective, feminist social work perspective. So they know the deep-rooted issues that women problems will not be presented because of the hell lot of politics I talked about, starting from construction to socialization and culture of silence, etc. That is why the idea of reaching out to the survivor is through anybody reaching out to the women, so that they speak, they voice about their problem. And that's what restorative justice also says, that, give voice to the marginalized. Then criticism of the traditional legal system. So it is important that transforming of patriarchal legal structures to the more democratic legal services. And the fifth is, for us, community involvement. So wherever we are so many social workers, we are so many, number of NAPSMI members is increasing. Community engagement should also increase. What kind of community involvement we are doing? Are we really facilitating the voices, marginalized voices to come forward? Then there are different models. I'm not speaking about different models of restorative justice, but there are models called restorative circles. And believe me, there are countries which have actually practiced those circles, and they have reached out. There is a study conducted in Canada, where study with the sex offenders, right? So the victims and the offenders, and the study come out with, the conclusion, if you read that study, that the restorative mechanisms have made them realize that where the problem was and how these 6 girls were rehabilitated, what happened out of that crime. And also it was a changing life for the boys who were engaged in offense, because they came to know about a very different worldview of living. So the studies are available. So I'll go towards the conclusion that it's not good when one I'll conclude. Because it's not good to pose problems. It's important to give solutions also, especially in social work. Another one is, I'll go to the solution. Number one is that everywhere we are making changes in our curriculum, right? NEP is here, and NEP is giving a lot of scope for community engagement, outreach activities. So all of us are responsible to reach out to the communities, and as the theme is eco-social work. First thing, let us, when we are here, we are responsible, let us make gender responsive, curriculums, which are very, very important, whether our, I'll tell you, like one example, and I advocate also, and I say this in every forums, that number of women prisoners in India is around 25,000, right? And we are how many? Yesterday in the GBM we got to know we are more than 600 social work institutes, right? We need to frame, I think I struggle a lot when, working in the criminal justice system, that permission becomes a problem. But yes, we try to negotiate and assert and we get the permission. But it's very, very important. And here I'm talking only about women prisoners. We can touch the lives of each woman prisoner. And or if we are placed in prison system, we can work through restorative circles and we can really do, problem solving. That is one submission from my side. Second, modified circle format can be done. We can contextualize, the restorative circles, where it's important to address the harm, bring all the stakeholders, and we can use, different props. One can say you can use a talking piece, and you can use the, opening and the closing ceremony of restorative circles, and it works a miracle. Sweden is one country, New Zealand is another, Australia also, I think they have started restorative circles and restorative justice, and it is very much in place in criminal justice system, especially working with women prisoners, sex offenders, problems in domestic violence cases. I think restorative mechanisms are working great. Second suggestion, recommendation, that shifting the focus from punishing to promoting accountability in the effort to repair harm will help us. Third, as I said, that Indian society is it's a fertile, opportunity in Indian society, because we say that यहाँ पे एक चीज़ मुफ्त में मिलती है और वो है सलाह. So everybody is, advice. You go to the bus stop, you talk to anybody, you'll get salah, get advice. So why not encash this, organize this, and make it trainable, make it professional, because people are willing to talk. People are willing to come into discourse. Then let's strategize and design that discourse in a manner which is problem solving, right? That could be done through, that integration can be done through restorative justice. And fourth, I'll say role of social workers in restorative justice. The first thing, that's the last submission from my side. And there are studies. I was just thinking that whether studies are there or not, available there or not, there are many studies available on, and I'll say that I was just looking for, is there any society which is gender just society? So I get example of Sweden and I get example of Kerala. So when I say that there are opportunities, we have opportunities here to practice, and social workers will have to, it was हमको नया क्या करना है या respond क्या करना है. We were thinking about, how to respond to the social realities. I think let's learn, train ourselves to become, to practice restorative justice. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Pandey, Leena Pandey. And you talked about so many things. I don't know how to now, but anyway, I'll just mention the key takeaways, and that is, of course, restorative circles, restorative justice, and how we can bring all the stakeholders together. Yeah, I think that is extremely important. And as you said, that this culture of silence and how cases, so many cases do not get reported. The NCRB, from where we take our statistics, only reports cases which are reported. They register those cases which are registered or reported, let's say. So there are so many cases around us happening. It never gets reported. Now the other thing is, you talked about Kerala. Let me tell you, Kerala may appear gender justice, but there's a lot of inequality and the violence. The violence, it's such a paradox. The violence against women is just increasing.
Scholar is working in Kerala.
Yeah, she's working in Kerala. Okay, so, gender, for social work, I think this is a key takeaway, that we include this gender, restorative circles, restorative justice mechanisms, and how we can do it, how to operationalize it, because talking is one thing, but how to really make it operational, that is extremely important. So we can have more discussions. Please note your questions. We'll have a question answer session at the end of after all our panelists have spoken. So our next panelist is, who wants to go first? Okay, Professor R. Nalini from Department of Social Work, Pondicherry University. Pondicherry also has a high sex ratio. I remember that because I tell my students that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. A very good morning to all of you. And a very nice session so far with a lot of thought-provoking. But I'm here to have some thoughts to you, share some thoughts to you based on my research and based on my experience of staying in Pondicherry. I'm going to focus on gendered suffering and structural inequality and eco-social analysis of women in substance-affected families. So why this topic? Why am I talking about substance abuse? So if Pondicherry is also infamous for other things, and one is the rampant use of alcohol because of various other reasons. If we have time, I'll discuss that, but straight away come to the point. Because of the environment out there that, that in fact promotes, I should not be using the word, promotes drinking, alcoholism is rampant, and in my university also, we have a lot of, I mean every year at least 3 or 4 deaths of in-service non-teaching staff because of alcoholism, and women, usually the wives, would be given the jobs on compassionate basis. So that was always in our minds whenever we wanted to have any interventions or response. So when COVID-19 came, as a department, we wanted to respond, and immediately, I was there as a HOD, and we had to spearhead it, and everything was going online. So I thought, okay, now we will first respond to the single women of Pondicherry. So we started our, teleservices, wherein we took this help of our students and one faculty member, and we had 3 numbers, phone numbers, given as telecontact, and we were giving primarily relief, that is dry rations, not just rice and dal, all the other things like even we packed salt, sugar, I mean that's a big list, which we mobilized and we packed, and we were going, and the response came through calls. We were receiving phone calls, and whoever wanted counseling, we had the faculty, guest faculty of course, but Professor Ilamuruguma, he's currently working in Northeast. He's a specialist in psychiatric social work, so he was offering the counseling. And this service, it closed down naturally after the initial first phase, probably after 2 months. And within that short span of time, we had around 229 callers, if I remember women who called us for help. And then when we got to talking to them, we were amazed that, shocked in fact, that there was a pattern that was repeating. That is, elderly women as wives or widows of alcoholics who had young daughters who again are widows of alcoholics. And that was one thought that kept us always, that we should get back to them whenever there's a requirement. And then we also tied up with the government of Pondicherry, Department of Health and Family Welfare, and we were offering again telecounseling services, primarily to the people who were affected because of COVID and who were at home. They were quarantined at home, and they used to call us, and we used to give them primarily health care plus the other counseling. And we again found that women were suffering because of presence of alcoholics in the family, especially when there was very less movement, when they used to drink and be at home. So then we thought, okay, we need to respond. And apart from that, we have examples. I don't have the time to discuss all that. Whichever NGO we are working, we were working on the same topic. So if there's a question time, I can come back to that. But keeping the focus on, alcoholism. What is the global response? Let us go down to generally, we all social workers know that if we have to have a solution for a social problem, it has to start from a global agenda, then comes the national agenda, the regional and the local. So for instance, if you look at child protection, you can see that anything for that matter, any social problem. So we now go back to, as a mantra, we go to the SDGs. Which SDG is addressing this substance abuse? Anybody in the group, students, do we know which SDG? It does not directly, SDG does not directly address this, but there are points inside. Anybody can have a guess on this? We all know SDG 3 talks about health. And SDG 3.5 says, I'm just reading for our knowledge, substance abuse, that is strengthen the prevention and treatment of substance abuse, including narcotic drug abuse and harmful use of alcohol. That is 3.5 indicator. And 3.51, how are we going to achieve this 3.5 indicator? What are the targets? Coverage of treatment interventions. That is pharmacological, psychological, and rehabilitation and aftercare services for SUDs, substance use disorders. 3.5.2 APC, that is alcohol per capita consumption. From age 15 years and older, how are they consuming alcohol? These are the two targets, indicators through which you're going to measure the target of 3.5.2. Now, when you look at this at a broader perspective, that is substance use, what are the other SDGs that are going to be impacted by substance use disorder? So which are the other SDGs which will get affected negatively because of alcoholism? SDG, anybody can name? What is SDG 1? Poverty. SDG 2? Zero hunger. 3? Health. 4? Quality education. 5? 8? Decent work and economic growth. The list doesn't end here. These are some the other SDGs. Number 10, reduce inequalities. 11, sustainable cities and communities. 12, responsible consumption and production. 16, peace, justice, and institutions. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4. 9 SDGs are being impacted by one single SDG 3.5. And what is the prediction? What is the, I'm not saying this, there is a report from the UN office and also WHO, which says that because of the inadequate attention that we are giving to achievement of SDG 3.5, SDG 3.5 at the end of 2030 will not be achieved. It's clearly, the statement is made because when you have an alcoholic, or when you have, I don't know how many of us have visited hospitals to understand the burden, health burden on doctors because of alcoholism and substance use. NCDs, for instance, non-communicable diseases, and we all know how it impacts the entire body. So, and also not to name the deaths due to drunken driving. So there is already a health burden because of which we are we are not aware, but directly, I mean indirectly, there's a lot of loss of human lives. So this is based on all this, the global assumption on record says that because there is much less prioritization on this particular SDG 3.5, this might not be, the target might not be achieved till the time of 2030. I mean, we are going to log back. Now again, as social work students, I mean, I'm sure we need to have more data. I'm going data driven because lots has been talking. You go to any field, any community, if we go, going by our experience, when we go and talk and we ask them, okay, which do you want us to attend first? Which area do you want us to address first? Which is your priority area? Any PRA will target to you to substance use, because of which, I mean, we understand that when there is a, substance abuser in the family, it is a family disease. So if there is going to be an alcoholic, we know that there is an entry point for several other social problems. We were talking about domestic violence. We talked about suicides. We talked child sexual abuse, deprivation of children's education, health, a good family. In Pondicherry, where we come across children very often who don't have families per se, and we talk so much about going back to families. And the other day I was doing a training program for NGO grassroots workers, and they really work in 7 different areas, districts. They tell us that the child sexual abuse is on the rise, especially incest, not just the father, but also the other male, maybe the brother, because again, the reason being substance use and alcoholism. So this is the local. What does the international data say? That is OECD. We all know OECD is an international agency, organization for economic cooperation and development. They have come out with the report on prevention of harmful alcohol use, and this document is dated 2021. They are talking about 52 OECD countries and 20 G20, Group 20 countries, G20, which includes India. They are saying that by 2050, 1.1 million premature deaths will occur because of alcohol-related disease. This will occur in all 52 OECD countries and G20 countries, and life expectancy will be 0.9 years lesser over the next 30 years in all these countries. This is a prediction. So we are going to again lose valuable human lives. Again, now I'm going back to data from WHO, World Health Organization. They come out with a report on alcohol and health treatment of SUDs, and they talk about region-wise. And India is in the southeast region, and we are the largest country, and the levels of alcohol consumption in southeast region has increased considerably. European countries, it is coming down. So they are saying that don't go by numbers. Maybe 3% only you'll find that Indians are drinking, but they are drinking in a very dependent pattern, which means they're not able to stop. So we have to be more cautious about this data from the Southeast Asian region. But there's another important point for all of us social workers there. The WHO in itself has admitted that people with lived experience and their relatives are critical to development and implementation of appropriate services. Now, how does it transform into policy? When we are going to work with persons who are affected by SUDs, we find there are two types of lived experiences. One, people who have been affected because of SUD and they have taken treatment and now they are sober or they're in abstinence. So they can be one source for us to work with towards prevention of substance use. The other category is children or a family member who has by close quarters seen an alcoholic and they have taken a oath or they have taken it on themselves that I will never even touch it. I will never touch alcohol, I'll never touch substance because I have suffered and I don't want my family to suffer. Believe me, when we went for our study, we found families, third generation is now in abstinence. Grandfather's brother was an alcoholic, he died, so the grandfather taken it on him, I will not drink. The father has not drunk, the grandson has not drunk. 3 generations of sobriety and abstinence. So these are the lived experiences which can really be useful for us as social workers, because as social workers, as Nina said, we all have a responsibility. If we are not going to tackle this problem, another 10 years down the line, this is the only problem which we are going to tackle, because it's growing. Across the state, you'll find consumptions higher. Very recently, whenever there is a festival, I try to analyze the data. Post-Diwali, sale of liquor, how much profit they have made, 820 crores of profit in Kerala after Onam. So these kind of data you can find out, and it can be very shocking. How much time do I have? Okay, then I come down to, there are other data, I'm sorry, I can't share it but very relevant. But how does it impact women? Again, going back to why I'm talking about in terms of women, because immediately when you even try to understand research perspectives on substance use disorder and women, we are trying to come up with data, how many women are drinking. Okay, what is the Indian response to this? So in the year 2019, I'm sure whether you followed or not, in the year 2019, we had the first government-sponsored research, all India level, covering all the 36 states and UTs, an all-India survey on magnitude of substance use in India, which said that 16 crores of Indians are drinking alcohol, 16 crores. Okay, now I'm coming to the local, Pondicherry. Now in Pondicherry, if 100 people are drinking alcohol, 48.3% are drinking on a dependency pattern. Dependency pattern means आप bottle को छोड़ना भी चाहोगे वो नहीं छोड़ेगा. It will not leave you. You are drinking it is dictating to you. So dependency pattern, we are having alcoholism in Pondicherry. And how does it impact Pondicherry? You see, we are high on suicides, and we are high on family discord, and you find family disintegration and its impact on children, which is documented and which is being researched. But we are working in, isolated groups. We are working for children, we are working for women. Very recently we had taken up a project with slum women, with an NGO. It is working in that slum. So we contacted around 48 women there, and we asked them, would you like to take up a small social entrepreneurship if we give you the seed loan? So out of the 48, we went to 38 women. Out of the 38 women, 36 women agreed to take up the money, and then we were also doing a research. Why do you need the extra income? What is your family setup? And we found that in all these 36 women families, there was a presence of an alcoholic. So we can understand the gravity of this issue. So how do you respond to this? Where do you draw the lines? How do you find the solution? So I think the minute we have done projects, we have gone to colleges, we have a team of student peer educators. The minute we go and start talking to these groups, the first question is, alcoholism is available in this particular, let us say Kennedy wines, it is available in Ganpati wines, it's available in, Abdul Rahman wines, whatever. They keep telling us about availability. So we tell them very clearly, our focus is on plugging the demand. We are not here to talk about plugging the supply. That is a different story altogether. But we can talk about plugging the demand. So when we say this, the response that comes is more from the girl students. And when we have individual discussions with the women and the girls, and let me tell you, after every session that we have on awareness generation or any interaction with any student group, any community group, after the discussion is the women who come and tell us, please help us, we are really suffering. Give us a solution. We have had enough of this. We are fed up. We are overfed with awareness. Please tell us a solution. Now, we were talking about how India is responding, to SDG 3.5 and 3.2. 3.52, how many people are coming out of de-addiction centers? The Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in the year 23-24 has given a data that 5 lakh 82, I can round it up to 5 lakh 83 people are coming out of de-addiction centers. Imagine, we are talking about 16 crores Indians drinking. We are talking about 48.4% of Pondicherrians drinking on a dependent pattern, and only 5 lakh 82 Indians have come out of treatment centers. Okay, and the APC, alcoholic per capita consumption, stands at 43% for the 43.3% for the men and 36.6% for the women, as per the government data. So what I'm saying is, if we have to talk about how to prevent it, the only way we can do is to plug the demand. I keep repeating this example. Earlier we were using CDs to copy. Now we have come down to pen drives. Is anybody buying CD? No. Why? There is no demand. So if we all agree, as social workers, we need to have a different movement altogether to prevent alcohol. So I think we have to take up oaths. We have to set the example. We should be the ones who are pioneering plugging the demand for drugs and alcohol. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Nalini. I just want to, it's not on? It is on. Okay, yeah. Can you hear me? Yes. No, I just wanted to say that let us also understand that when you say drinking of alcohol by so many people, I mean, drinking is one thing. Getting drunk and being an alcoholic is another thing, right? That is one thing we have to be careful about. And also, you see, when you say, I don't know where they got this percentage, yeah, people drinking but what about alcohol? There are different types of alcohol. You know, there are, not everybody is drinking good alcohol, which is ISI marked or whatever, you know, or, you know, we have the Tharas and the Asika 40 in Odisha, yeah, so all that, yeah, so the local drinks, yeah, no, which are much more harmful. I think that is one thing we need to be careful about. But anyway, we all know what is alcoholism and how it affects families and affects the household economy and what happens to women, because they are the ones who actually. But you know that women have been protesting so much. But why will government listen? Why will they listen? Because it's giving them so much revenue. Do they want to stop, you know, close down the alcohol shops? I don't think so. Or even, let's say, in Norway, you know, the state sells, you know, you can't buy it anywhere off the shelf. Yeah, the government will sell the alcohol, and it's only during certain hours in the day, and that's it. If you miss it, you can't buy alcohol. But anyway, that's another issue. You can get it anywhere, yeah, with a small premium. Okay. No, yes. So these are certain things, but what is the solution? I think plugging the demand, that is what you're trying to say. You see what Nitish Kumar did in his last election. He stopped. Yeah, that doesn't mean that alcohol is not there. Even in Gujarat. Yeah. So these are some of the questions that you can raise and we can have a discussion. Thank you so much. So we go to the last speaker now, Dr. Asha Mukundan, who's from TISS. Yes, am I reading it? Yes, Mumbai. Yeah, over to you. So please,
I guess
yeah,
I'll
you
need
have
to stand here or you're not going to see me.
hand mic.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
Ek hand mic de dijiye.
Yeah.
Please.
I've been saying that all this entire architecture has been made by people who are pretty tall.
Yeah, insensitive.
Very insensitive,
Very
because I've been sitting in the chair and my leg has not been reaching the floor.
Yeah, so it's not ergonomically designed. You're right.
So on that note, I'll talk about another thing. That you know, when this topic was discussed with me, the topic that is given to me is innovation in social work, education, and profession in women. That's the title that's printed in the brochure. But when the topic was discussed and we were kind of discussing the title, it was very clearly said that I would be talking about innovation in social work profession from a gendered perspective. But when it got printed, the gendered got interpreted as woman, right? And this is a very common thing that keeps happening, because when we keep talking about gender, the first thing that comes into our mind is a woman. And I think we need to change that kind of narrative, because the concept and understanding of gender has now gone beyond the binary of male and female. So the concept of gender has changed, the definition of gender has changed. And I would be specifically talking about the concept of gender from a children's perspective, from a children's world, because gender in an adult world and gender in a children's world are quite different. And it is understood and interpreted very differently, but it's never been spoken about. So I'm going to break my title into three parts. First, I'll be talking about the innovations in social work, education and practice, and then I go on to speak about gender within the whole perspective of children, which is one of the innovative practices that is being done in our college. So I come from Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai, and we are quite well known for our field action projects, which is an extension work which faculty undertake in college, which is very, very different from research. Extension activities actually denote, and which is a very big part of the new education policy now. It denotes the social responsibility of teaching institutes towards the problems and the emerging needs of the society, and it says that colleges should be involved now in community level work and contribute back to community. It's also about setting examples and telling students that this is what you all need to do in future. So Tata Institute of Social Sciences has initiated and promoted several kinds of extension activities since its inception in 1936. And our first field action project is Muskan, which was the child guidance clinic. The concept of child guidance clinic was brought in from TISS. There have been sheer innovations in social work education and practice, as the institute has played a major role in piloting and pioneering new services and initiating time-bound social work programs within well-established organizations and systems, or outside them, with the objective of demonstrating to the public the need for such services. So essentially, when many of us started working in the system, we realized that there was a dearth, or there was a need for certain kind of social work interventions in spaces where there were no interventions happening, and that is why they felt the need to start interventions. And it's not, and when I talk about extension of field action projects, they are not NGOs, they are projects within the system, but it almost runs like a full-fledged project, like a full-fledged NGO that which are handled by faculty within the institute. Now, these projects, essentially, these field action projects essentially demonstrate new interventions, respond to new needs and changing social realities. It also provides a space for field experiences. Students are placed there for field work, and it becomes new strategies for intervention. We use these platforms to even in fact, we do use these platforms for policy and advocacy level work. One of the field action, have you all heard of Childline? 1098 number? Well, 1098 Childline began in TISS as a field action project. So it was started by a faculty called Jeru Bilimoria, who was, so most of us who work in TISS as faculty were earlier practitioners. So she was also a practitioner who worked a lot with children, and she felt that children did not have a space to call anyone, especially street children. They did not have space to call anyone when they were in crisis. And those were the days when we had coin boxes. We didn't have mobile phones. So you had to put a 1 rupee coin and then call people. And she realized children on the street did not have even that 1 rupee coin to put in the coin box to call when they were in crisis. That's how she negotiated with the state telephone company, and told them that can we have a toll-free number for children, and they responded. So that's how it all began in Mumbai, where the 1098 came into picture, and a lot of children started responding to the whole process. It's interesting to note that the who were manning the phone were also children who were from the street. They were trained by people to respond to phone calls, and they were able to respond well, because since they were also children from the street, they could understand what were the issues that were going on. Eventually, times have changed. Now you don't see coin boxes, now you have mobiles. Then one had to negotiate to say that even the mobile 1098 is a toll-free number, right? So it has evolved over a period of time, and there have been a lot of hard work and work that has gone behind these activities. It was then taken over by the state government and then over by the central government. And that's how many of our field action projects, which were so these are quite innovative processes which begin within the educational institutions. And educational institutions play a very important role when we start such projects, for the simple reason that my papers got stuck. Yeah, the advantage of having a project located with an educational institution is that it gives a little more added advantage to negotiate for space to speak and put across, points with stakeholders, because they see us as academicians and not as, as activists, or so we are a little more on a neutral side. Also, when it comes from educational institutions and from TIS, there is a reputation that we hold, so the various stakeholders do hold us at high regard. They listen to us, they talk to us. So academicians are seen as neutral beings, not invested in the field, and so emotionally detached. I don't know how much true it is. We are definitely very much attached to most of the work that we do. And also the stakeholders and funding becomes a little more easier, and I'll put that easier in inverted brackets, because finally funding is a major issue when it comes to starting innovative projects and convincing funders to fund many of these projects. Another field action project which many of the speakers here made a mention was the special cell for women and children, which operate out of the police stations. It is supported by more than 16 states across the country. Then we have a field action project called Prayas, which works for the prisoners, and one talks about rehabilitation of released prisoners. We also, and I specifically run a field action project called Resource Cell for Juvenile Justice, which works with children in conflict with law. So that we have a lot of field action projects in TIS, 16 to be precise, if I'm not mistaken. So these are different projects, and these innovative practices do help students, because when they see their faculty obviously working in spaces, they do feel inspired, and many of our students have started their own organizations based on these field experiences that they have got in the field. So having said that, and having said about the innovations in social work education, I'll come down to the whole aspect of understanding gender within the world of children. And I think that's something that we need to also look at it. Since I said I work with children in conflict with law, or I work more on the issue of child rights and juvenile justice, how do we understand this whole aspect? Say if I'm looking at how many of you all have seen girls on the street? And there are so many people who are living on the street. Have you all ever thought that these girls who are living on the streets, especially minor girls, how do they live on the streets, and you think they're not being abused? Have you seen shelter homes for them? Have you seen night shelters for them? Are there spaces for these girls to sleep in the night? Well, that's something that we all need to talk about. We have a lot of residential institutions for girls, right? After 18 also, the state feels it's very important to have, residential facilities for girls who don't have any support system, rightly so. So after 18, they're sent to the women's shelter. Now let's talk about boys. After 18 years, boys who have no one, do they have any space to go? Yeah. When Madam just spoke about de-addiction out here, right? Or addiction. She spoke about addiction. How many states have de-addiction facilities? How many states have de-addiction facility for women? How many states have de-addiction facility for children? Because you can't keep children in an adult facility, the treatment varies. Right? And even if you have a de-addiction facility for children, how many of us have de-addiction facility for girl children? So we are just not talking about many areas that we need to speak about, and there is a need, there is an increasing need where we are talking about increase in addiction issues, and we are not talking about services. That we are talking about number of children living on the streets, but we are not talking about providing them with shelter. There's a huge difference between a legal mandate and a social reality. For example, what is the age of consent, which is continuously going on and on and on in India, whether it should be 16, whether it should be 18, and everyone was happy when the age of the boys, not boys, actually age of children in conflict with law, who have committed heinous offense, was brought down to 16 years, and everybody was happy about it. But do we understand what is a heinous offense? Right? Because even when we are talking about rape, a rape in an adult system and a rape in the children's system are very different. So when you're talking about below 18 in our country, we are not allowed, children are not allowed to have sex. Yeah, but what do you do when you're talking of developmental psychology, you're talking about children being attracted to people from the age of 12, 13, 14. So when you are attracted, what are you going to do? You're going to look from far and you're going to look at them and admire them. You are going to experiment with sex, right? And in our country, when two children fall in love, even if it's a 16-year-old, if it's a 17-year-old girl who falls in love with a 17-year-old boy, and they experiment with sex, who becomes a rapist? And who becomes a victim? Why? Who gave this definition? So we have to understand gender from an adult world and a children's world from a very different space. And then when people go around signing campaigns saying that all people who have been caught with, who have been rapists have to have death sentence, we need to think twice, because then it has very severe implications on different worlds. We can't just look at it very blindly in that sense, because our children's world operates very, very differently. Even rehabilitation, how do we understand rehabilitation? Like when Neena ma'am spoke about saying that, the next thing that you talk about is marriage. We understand rehabilitation of girls as marriage in the JJ system. After 18 years, the first thing that the superintendent of the institution would try to do is get the girl married, rather than send her to a women's institution. Because that's our understanding of rehabilitation. How do we talk of rehabilitation of boys? We talk about giving them technical training, right? How many of you all get your clothes stitched from a woman tailor? Yeah, nice. Men tailor? Do we teach boys tailoring? No. We teach girls tailoring. So even our vocational training has become gendered. Yeah, we are teaching girls mehndi making, we are teaching girls tailoring, but we do not want to teach boys tailoring, we do not want to teach boys mehndi. Our vocational training have become gendered. So we need to rethink and relook at these concepts, and I think these are where these innovative spaces that of field action projects within colleges help us to understand these issues in a lot more depth, and I'm sharing a few of my experiences with it. I don't have much of answers to it, but yeah, we are trying in our own little cocoon to try and make a little bit of change in the system. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Asha Mukundan, and raising an entirely different issue, right? Yeah, talking about your action learning projects and what kind of learning you get from there, and particularly from the children's point of view and their world of gender. I think these issues are extremely important. Can you hear me? Yeah, extremely important, and I'm happy that you have raised these issues. And now we open the floor, because I thought let's give some time, because one speaker dropped out, so we have some time. So we open the floor now for questions. We open the floor now for questions. Can you please see if somebody wants? Yes, there we have a hand up there. Can you please?
Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful, very, very interesting panel. My name is Margarita Windisch, and I teach in social work in Australia. And we've got a whole bunch of students here from RMIT University. My particular field of interest is also eco-social work. And my research is particularly around heat waves and the experience of older women who, because they're most affected by heat waves and make up the biggest group of deaths, but that's not really what I want to talk about or ask. So my kind of comment and question is probably mostly directed at Professor Mitali, but anybody else who wants to contribute, I'd be very happy. Yeah, I guess for me, what I find really interesting, looking at gender, of particularly women's discrimination and oppression and the destruction of the environment. My whole learning has come from materialist ecofeminism as a really important perspective that actually showed that our current economic and political system, which is really global capitalism, can only survive by appropriating all this unpaid work or reproductive labour, which is mostly performed by women, but also a lot of people from, the global south, and all the resources from nature. There is no way all our companies could make the amount of money they're making if they actually had to pay for all the work that's being done to create the workers that they then make the money from, and if they somehow had to actually look after the environment. So it's this externalization of all these work and resources that allows them to become multi-billionaires. So what we are then seeing also, and I think Nancy Fraser, I really like her work, this political economist from the United States, she calls it cannibal capitalism. She says this system is actually eating its own resources. It's destroying care, it's destroying democracy, because all across the world we see more and more authoritarian governments, and it's destroying nature. So we also, that's why I want to come back to to Professor Mitali. We also have a real issue of care of crisis in Australia. We are a rich, developed country, and I found it very interesting what you said, that women who go into the labour force have to drop out because of the care responsibilities. And if your government invested, I don't know how many trillions, it could become a developed kind of country. Now, we are a developed country, and we have women drop out of the labour force because childcare is so expensive that they can't actually do it. So the only ones who actually are benefiting still from this system are the women from the elite who can pay for childcare or employ often migrants who come from the global south to do that care work much, much cheaper. So I guess I come now to it's a bit more of a bigger question for me. It's like, how do we actually achieve liberation for women? Is that actually our aim, or maybe just making it possible for some to sustain and have a good life? How do we actually achieve that and also protect the environment? I mean, it's the biggest question of all. But I feel like, and we have a social democratic government, and it's not investing enough in actually allowing women to become equal citizens in society. So it's, anyway, it's a really big question. Thank you.
So, yeah, very, very good question. If you would like to.
No, I think it's more like a comment than a question, ma'am. So I fully agree with you what you are saying. The issue of childcare is not confined to a developing country like ours. It is across the globe, and childcare is, I mean, it has to be done, isn't it? To recreate, to reproduce, it is done. What we need is that, okay, on an average, we say that one child means you lose 3 years of your job. I mean, you take a break, that kind of thing, because as you say, childcare is having paid childcare is so costly, and I mean, there can be no substitute for a mother. That is what I would say. Many women would like to do it themselves and not in paid childcare. So, in that way, what we can have is that we have to honor, regard, and value the work that women are doing. That is extremely important. Instead of taking it for granted and brushing it under the carpet because they have to do it, we have to, the society at large. Now, TFR, the total fertility rates are falling. Why this is falling? The cost is on the entire society. And it is, I think, the reasons for falling fertility rates are also to do with, because women want to go out and have a career, realize their potential, which is good for not only for women, it's good for the entire society, I guess. So yes, women must be respected, regarded for the reproductive work that they are doing, which the society is not doing. Therein lies the problem. A homemaker, as they say, बहुत सारों को आप पूछो मम्मी क्या करती है तो कुछ नहीं करती है. In my university, in a staff common room, we were talking about males, and most of the males that women, my wife does nothing, as if, I wish. So as she has rightly pointed out, get me a woman who does nothing. You know, so that kind, even, this is not by men. Women also respond similarly. Therein lies my problem. Women also say, if you ask, what are you doing? They said, I'm not doing anything. The homemakers, they themselves say, and that is wherein lies the problem. We have to realize, first, let us realize our values, then only the society at large can give us our value. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I just want to add one line. You know, in the class, because I teach the gender course here, in the class I always say, घर का काम नहीं होगा तो बाहर का काम, and my students will say नहीं होगा, because I have trained them now. You see, they should understand. As you said, when you ask them, what does your mother do? Nothing. So who cooks?
Women themselves say they don't do anything. Women themselves, that is the problem.
They undervalue themselves. You see that low self-esteem, right? That is there. Yeah, but we understand this is a problem. Okay. Yes.
If I may say,
Yeah.
only one sentence, and I think it is very, very important to start dialoguing and discoursing on these issues. It's very, very important, and communication is not happening in society, in communities, so that's very important.
Yeah, we just have one last question.
Yeah.
Just want to add. Can you give the
Yes, please.
जैसे नथिंग वाली जो बात है, साथ में हम लोगों को जब पूछते हैं ना मदर क्या करती है, तो हाउस वाइफ टर्मिनोलॉजी जो हम लोग यूज करते हैं, हाउस वाइफ मतलब पूरे घर का जो हर एक मेंबर है, छोटे से बड़ा, सबकी वाइफ है. हर कोई उसको डिमांड करेगा, मेरे को ये चाहिए वो चाहिए. आदमी के लिए हम लोग हाउस हस्बैंड यूज नहीं करते हैं ना, उसकी जिम्मेदारी क्या है, बाहर जाके कमा के लाए छोड़ दे. लेकिन महिला के लिए हम लोग हाउस वाइफ, ये टर्मिनोलॉजी भी कहीं हमको बदलने की जरूरत है. यू कैन कॉल होम मेकर और लाइक दैट.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Hello everyone, greetings ma'am. First of all, you're all my inspirations because I'm a budding professional of social work and I want to take everyone's autograph later. And yeah, and yeah, and I have a question because you were all talking regarding women. women's upliftment, education, and some substance abuse from Nalini ma'am. And I came across, I had my own introspection while you were having the talks. And what about the trans women? Transgender and the trans women we have. What about the trans women, and what studies you people, you might have done many, and what are your perspectives about trans women?
What do you want to know? Trans women, it's also a very vast area. Yeah, they are also affected. Yeah, let Shuli do it, yes.
I think, shall I answer her question first quickly? So there is a nascent movement that's happening among the queer collectives. You know, it's not just trans women. I'm an ally. And I'm an ally because my students, the queer collective, made me an ally, and they informed me about queer issues. So I've learned a lot from my queer friends, young friends. And I would say that there is a movement that's happening. There's a lot of work that's happening. We have the Transgender Act, which has given some affirmative policies. In TISS, we are trying to implement that act so that we get some leverage. But these are non-binary issues are something that can only change when we inform ourselves of what is this non-binary sexuality orientation. We don't talk about it, we hide it under the carpet. Like women's issues, this becomes a matter of honor. And there's a beautiful research, but it's a confidential research, which I am party to, called Apno Ne Bahut Dukh Diya. And it is a narrative of all the queer people, how the household itself has become a site of violence. And I think we need to interrogate gender relations from the viewpoint of violence. Why women do not say that I'm not an housewife is because they are every day humiliated and told that if you don't do this, then you're not a woman enough. If you don't dress like this, you're not a woman enough. Verbal violence is a way of life for us. Yeah? And if we take it a little more, extend it, I think it's very important to bring back Ambedkar in the women's discourse, because he brought in the idea of humiliation and dignity. You humiliate certain women and certain communities to say that you don't have any contribution. Yeah? And when we look at violence, then their restorative justice is not possible. It is just not possible because casteism is deeply institutionalized. And that's what Ambedkar fought every time. And he also stood up for women's rights. We don't talk about it in our textbooks, in our social work ideas. Hindu Code Bill gave us a lot of rights, but the very men who fought for independence did not want Hindu Code Bill. Yeah, so we have to get back Ambedkar's legacy. We have to bring the textbooks by Gail Omvet and many others who have Sharmila Rege, and make it a contemporary, very clear, mandated reading for all social work students. That's the only way we are going to understand the intersectionalities of violence, which includes queer people.
Yes.
Because Ambedkar has shown the way for the queer people as well. All the activists who are working there, trying to reclaim their dignity, and you have to meet them to really understand the pain. Every time you misgender somebody, when you don't say what they identify as they, and we call them he, she, it's a painful remembrance of what your family did to you. If you don't understand that, and we don't incorporate it, self-reflexivity for social workers is very important. It is not about telling people what they should do. It's not about identifying data of what is not existing for people. It should be driven by passion. It should be driven by self. Have I changed my ideas of people, prejudices, stereotypes, oppression? I am also an oppressor. Acknowledging that will take us forward in what we call social justice and social change, which is hard to do, believe me. But that's the only pathway for social workers, yeah? So violence, I think, is the grounded perspective with which we look at development, economics, and stereotypes and various social structures and structural discrimination is something I just wanted to.
Can I just say something?
Thank you so much, because these are very important. No, we have a mic. These are very important issues, and I'm so happy that you raised it, Shuli, and I mean,
Can
it
I-
can go on and on, but
Can
yes.
I just very quickly, since I see a lot of youngsters out here, I thought I'll just say this because she was talking about prejudice and mindset and how deep-rooted our concept of gender is. You look at Twitter, you look at social media, and you will find, if there is a guy who will put up a post saying that helping my wife in the kitchen, and there'll be like hundreds of likes. Do you find a woman saying helping my husband in the kitchen? What is that? Stereotype? Mindset? Yeah? Helping my mother in the kitchen. Nobody says helping my father in the kitchen. Right? The mother is earning, the wife is earning, the lady is earning, but she is also earning. But the woman is earning. The wife is also, these are all our language, our mindset. And I think we need to re-examine all these things.
Just short. A small, as she asked about the perspectives, it happened, even in Delhi School of Social Work, the students, when they were studying gender and all the courses, they came up with this idea that why we are talking in binaries, men and women only. So it was students' initiative that they made a collective in the name of Bagicha, and Bagicha is still operating. And when we ask as faculties also, when we know that the students are not identifying as he or she only, we ask them as faculty, how do we address you, right? It's very important again to communicate and talk that tell me whether knowingly unknowingly मेरा मन नहीं होगा उसका insult करने का फिर भी हम insult कर जाते हैं है ना. That is also something because these things are so subtle. Gender is so subtle that I'm still living gender when I'm speaking, right? So it is that subtle, and I have been taught not to see since the very beginning. So we say that it's a constantly evolving process. So it's I have learned through my students to navigate, to talk, to interact, to work with them, what to address, So it's very, very important that such initiatives, when the students are also bringing in the newer perspectives, it should be accepted and lived with.
Thank you very
One
much.
last word from my side.
Yes,
The
please.
question, again going back to the question about what ma'am raised, that's why I just missed it in my presentation. She was rightly pointing out which state wants to cut down the supply, and she was talking about Bihar. In 2016, Bihar stopped the supply, production, sale, whatever of liquor. And what is the outcome of that? We were talking about violence. And then RCB data, latest, it talks about, it also talks about obesity, that I'm not bringing in here. I'm talking about obesity reduction, plus what is important is it says that 2.1 million cases of intimate partner violence among females has been reduced, and even the data says that women are welcoming it because they feel now they know that if the husband drinks, yes, you better even, I'm talking about binge drinking, getting drunk, that is the right way, and when the next outcome would be domestic violence. They go back home, they're quiet, they don't shout, they don't create any ruckus because they know that if they do that, they'll be behind the bars much quicker, and there is less supply of illicit liquor. They can't just go and buy it across, because even if they do that, they don't beat up the women. So the domestic violence has come down to a large extent, and that is being reported
That
by
is
the
commendable,
NCRTB
yeah.
data. So
This
I
is,
think
we must
we keep
celebrate
talking
this.
about which state is wanting to do that. Again, I'm saying if we stop buying, they'll be forced to take it up. So thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much. Yes.
Good morning to everyone. I think this was a very empowering session. But I just have two small observations or thoughts on which having your all of your opinions is going to be very beneficial. So we've spoken about women empowerment, I think, time and again. I don't think it's a new concept for any one of us in this room or either. But at the same time, I think women empowerment as a concept, we are only sticking to maybe educating them A, and B, getting them employed. Yeah. And we don't think beyond that. What I mean to say is, I work with my colleagues who are pretty well educated, who are earning a decent salary. Everything is good, right, on the outside. But they have to reach home by 4 o'clock. They have to reach home by 6 o'clock. Because my husband is going to shout at me if I do not reach by that time, because everybody is waiting for me to cook. I cannot order food from outside because everybody is waiting for me to cook. Yes? So at that point, I feel like the empowerment, actually the entire concept is somewhere or the other lacking, because the woman still does not have, the right to take complete decisions. A. And B, the other thing I was also just, contemplating about is India is a, rich country in terms of cultures and traditions and all of it. But at the same time, I also feel like these are the cultures and traditions which are pulling us women down, right? And this is something that I have personally experienced, and then I sort of voiced against it, and that did result in my separation, which was during menstruation, during periods. And I don't think this is, surprising to anyone. You're not allowed to go into the kitchen, right? You're not allowed to walk into the God's room or the mandir, what we call. And this was something that when you voice against, this has been happening since forever. Why are you speaking about it? I think rightly what Neena ma'am was speaking about, that the culture of silence is so dominant that it's been happening. Like, you don't change it now. But do you want me to continue this forever and ever? It doesn't happen. So I feel like, I think the patriarchy in general, what we always speak about, I think patriarchy is not just men promoting it. I think men have done their deed already. And I think it's women continuing that. It might be a very controversial statement. But I feel like women are continuing the, patriarchal mindset. So just any comments from your end would be welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your question and your thoughts. Thank you for your question and thoughts. But we have been discussing that women, you see, both men and women are responsible for upholding patriarchy. It's not only men who are doing it, yeah? Like she said that women do all the household work, but then they say, "Main to kuch karti nahi hu," yeah? That kind of thing. So that's why they are invisible. They remain invisible, right? I think that's what. Anybody else wants to add anything? Okay, any other question? Yes, stand up. Please stand up, take the mic from there.
Ma'am. Ma'am, this is Surya.
Yes, Surya.
This is Surya, Jaya Surya, PhD scholar from the Department of Social Work, Loyola College, Chennai. My question is to Dr. Nalini. Ma'am, Manakam.
Nalini.
Yeah. On the regarding substance abuse. So too much of alcohol consumption will lead to addiction. So those the regular practice and daily everyday drinking will lead to addiction. Then they will be admitted to de-addiction centers. I mean that for the treatment, or for temporarily to the rehabilitation centers. So after coming from the course, they continue to do so. So is that failure of those mechanisms, or that is depends on the individual perspective? That's it, ma'am.
Perennial problem.
Surya, it's a very pertinent question, but there's a concept of motivation enhancement counseling, which not just the patient, I don't want to use the word addict, it's not just the patient, it's also, it's only the patient, not only the patient, but the entire family, they are trained on motivation enhancement counseling. Now, to put it in a simple example, let's say the pattern has been that this person comes home drunk. When he comes late, he comes home drunk, but now he's sober. He's gone for treatment, he's come back for, let's say, 6-7 months, he's sober. And one day or one night, he comes back late. Now, when the family is trained, the family is also told that you have to accept that relapse can occur. You can't negate the fact. Relapse can occur anytime. I have seen people who have been sober for 10 years and again go back. So they're trained that you have to accept this. So the family has to have the strength to believe the person and not come up with wrong questions. We tell them, you ask them, what happened? Why are you late? Don't ask them directly, what did he do and come? Ennachu, you ask him what happened. Don't ask him, what have you come and what has made you kept you so late? Don't be accusing, because if this person has been genuinely late also, then you are, because see, we all know that it's a disease. That is why we keep saying, go for prevention. Don't even get into it, because alcoholism is a disease and it has to be treated. But it is not just the person who can be treated, and only he cannot or she cannot help the process of sustained abstinence. It has to be the support of the family. So the entire family has to be trained, and it is a challenge. We all accept that. How do we motivate? Whenever there is a concept of birthdays. What is a birthday? A person who has a date on which the person has chosen for, the person stopped consuming alcohol or a substance. That day is celebrated as a birthday to motivate others, and here the peer support helps a lot in catching on or sticking on to abstinence. It's a challenge, but every day is a challenge for them. And record research says that once an alcoholic or once a substance abuse disorder, it's there, you can anytime revert. So I think that is why we say it is important for the family or the care providers to be trained on motivation enhancement counseling, and it is not an easy process. I'm being very frank. Thank you for the question.
I'll respond to your thing, because what you have brought out is a practical reality, and you'll find cases of separation and divorce on a very weird trivial issues, and there is a constant tussle between rationality and morality, where the heavy burden is actually expected that the morality will be burdened, that weight will be carried by women, and you cannot question things. But I'll say we are transitioning, and we should transition, and we should look for change, temperamentally be scientific and rational, and keep questioning.
Keep questioning, yes, that's what. Keep questioning.
One line. Yeah. Okay, for this addictions, after getting out from the hospital or treatment, the addiction treatment, we can keep the child in aftercare institutions or rehabilitation center, and putting in the person in the AA group, Alcoholic Anonymous group. Those people will make the person in track, where the person is going, whether he is taking or not, because we cannot keep on track. The Alcoholic Anonymous group, these people can keep in track of this alcoholic person, and it is the best solutions for the person. Those have already come out from the hospitals. Thank you.
Yeah, good. There is some mechanism to do that, but we have to see how to put it in place and monitor whether it's really functioning or not.
So those are admitted in alcoholic de-addiction center,
Same.
then after they will automatically attach to Alcohol Anonymous.
Okay, thank you. Any other question? Any?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, very quickly. Yes.
Yeah. As I listen everyone, I understand that as being youth, as being student social worker, I have seen, because of various harm caused of family conflict and gender inequality, some women in India wants to stay single and independent, but families force them to do marriage and have a family, baby and all those things. So as being youth, and as I observe so many women in society, not only for marriage but only in their own family, own parents' family, they are not allowed. So what is your opinion, ma'am?
A simple thing, because women after marriage, they are in Indian society, majorly I'll say North Indian society, I should not say, but majorly you'll find that women, they don't possess any home. जब तक when they are born, they are said उसको कहीं और जाना है, और जहाँ वहाँ नहीं रहे तो they are not there also, they are not here, they are standing on a no man's land, right? That is it. So the opinion which you are asking is very complicated kind of thing, but let us stop thinking that marriage is a rehabilitation for women. So families will have to, and families are facing the same issue, and then again putting the person in the same circumstances. So I think eco-social work should, somewhere dismantle this mechanism. So as a social worker, work on that. That is my opinion.
See, as social workers, we always keep going back to family. When there's a person is successful, when the person is happy, when the person is unhappy, when the person is having a problem, not having a problem, we immediately go back to the family because we draw a lot of strength from the family. And a family, in Indian system, family has, we all look up to our families for support. So family per se is not a bad word. It's not wrong. It's not a bad thing. But it comes in its own baggage. I'm keeping all the other things aside. I'm talking from my heart. So we all know that if there is no family, what are the problems we are going to face? So then what do we do? So if it has to be a happy family, it's not a filmy solution. Only in films you have all the doting husbands. It comes with there is no perfect husband, there is no perfect wife. We have to make it happen, and for that we need to prepare ourselves. See, earlier all this was probably happening as part of the system, but we now have to give premarital counseling as a compulsory component before they get married. They have to understand these are the responsibilities, because I'm sorry that a lot of roles that earlier that was being done by joint family system, it comes again with its own baggage. There are a lot of problems. It could have been, now it is being taught to us only through films, and films are such a bogus. They give us such unnecessary things. They only hype it. So let us understand that family is important, but we have to work a lot. Happiness is not easy business. For being happy, we have to work hard. So we have to, and if it is, I'm not saying you have to, be, and again, both the genders are equal, but both the genders are not the same. So we have to understand it in the right perspective, because ultimately we are all, as social workers, talking about enhancing social functioning of individuals. So we have to have our perspectives right. We have to have a broader outlook. And we were talking about cooking and all that. Gender equality is not a cup of tea. Okay, come on. If I am free, I'll go in and cook. If my husband is free, he comes in and cooks. That is the way it has to be, without any complaints. We have to work towards that. It's not easy because we all come with our own mindsets. But let us not become very cliched. Let us not become very Eurocentric in our approach. Let us build on our strengths that are there in India, and also borrow from the strengths from the other countries, and have a happy solution or a happy sustainable system that works for us. Okay, let us not write away all the sacrifices that our forefathers are made for us by saying that these are all wrong and saying that the other things are all right. I think that doesn't work. I'm sorry if I've hurt any sentiment, or if I'm not being politically correct. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I think what I wanted to say, we'll end here, or if there's any okay, we'll end here. And I think she has summed it for me. Yes, you have summed it for me. Thank you so much. And what I would like to say here is that this session, by far, has been one of the most vibrant sessions. Yeah, because I have not been attending all the sessions. I'm sure there are other sessions, but from what I have attended, I think this has been a very, very vibrant session with a lot of discussions of what we have been saying. It's a little more than that. Again, we are repeating the same thing. There's nothing new, right, I would say. But I would like to thank the audience for very good questions, especially Dr. Shirley for giving some inputs, right? I'm so happy because this interaction helps. And it's very important that our students learn about it. Students, the young people, the young researchers, they know about these issues. This is extremely important, right? And I'm so happy that so many of the issues that I talk in the class were raised again here. Yeah, I give a whole session on culture of silence, and I ask that question every year, year after year, the culture of silence and its implications for women. Thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Let's break. Yes. Yes.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank the audience, Shirley ma'am, for your reflections, and our speakers for your engaging responses. To express gratitude, we would now like to felicitate our distinguished guests for their invaluable contributions to this plenary session. I request our chairperson to kindly do the honors of felicitating our respected speakers. I'd like to invite Dr. Swain to step forward and receive the token of appreciation. Swain. Dr. Swain. Professor Neena Pandey, please step forward. I request Professor R. Nalini to please step forward. Professor Mitali, can I please ask you to step forward? And lastly, Dr. Asha, can you please step forward? Ma'am, picture. I request Professor R. Nalini to can you felicitate Smita ma'am? Can I have a huge round of applause? Thank you so much to all our esteemed speakers for sharing such insights, perspectives, and reflections for today. Your contributions have added immense value to this session. We also express our gratitude to Smita ma'am for guiding and leading today's deliberations with depth and clarity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in handing a round of applause for our chairperson and our speakers for today. This marks the conclusion of today's event. Thank you once again.